Call the Tufton Borough Board of Selectmen meeting to order May 1st. Would you please stand and honor America with the salute? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any public comments?
I saw in your minutes that you had a Robert Byrd coming forward for the Energy Commission. Did you mean Dick Byrd?
Yes.
Richard.
Richard Byrd. Okay.
Right.
Robert Byrd.
Richard.
He's still filling up in the poll, isn't
The other question is, I saw that I got a notice, as everyone else did, that Friday Skip Hurd is presenting a plan for the library.
Yes.
Is that the same one he presented before? Or is this a new one?
He did make a presentation to the library committee.
You don't know if it's different or?
I think it's going to be a little longer. But
Oh, okay.
It's at the
fire
station.
I saw that, yeah.
But it's a rehabilitation of the current library building. What was that his previous one?
His previous one had glass walls and.
Well, I don't know about the
And he showed the
particulars,
solar
but
gain.
This is at the current library location.
Oh, to keep it at the same location.
This is a plan to expand the
Okay.
current building.
So that means it's different, yep.
Yes.
Because everyone was very excited. I was looking at other articles that everyone was very excited that he was talking about going across the street before. Because they said, a lot of people said the difference in the plan, the thing that was wrong was the location. So anyway, back to the drawing board. Thank
So
you.
it appears to be.
go ahead.
Just one quick item. I looked at the draft minutes that you guys will be reviewing. The letter that was read out loud, isn't that supposed to be part of the minutes now? If so, will that be posted? Because the other addendums were posted. The Mark Ebbets letter.
I don't normally put them, but I mean, certainly they're available if you.
I just want the planning board, whenever somebody sends a letter to us and they ask it to be included as part, I mean, I got the other two things, but can the letter be attached as well? Because that was,
I have a copy of it, so.
Sweet, thank you.
Yep, we're fine.
Point. Friday's meeting just pointed out to me the condition of Federal Corner and Brown Road being terrible. A motorcycle ride on Saturday showed me cracks in Durgan Road that'll pull the handlebars right out of a man's hand. Every year, the selectmen put forth a warrant article for paving and road maintenance. It's been suggested by the budget committee members, or at least a couple of them, that might not be adequate. Something to think about as we move forward towards the next year's budget and warrant articles. Thank you.
I can confirm on Durgan Road, of course. Big cracks. And then I also have a question about Chief Shigori being the president of the Police Chiefs Association. That's on his own time, is that correct?
It is outside of his responsibilities as the chief of police, correct?
So,
He's a salaried employee.
right. But in terms of travel expenses or taking a town car or anything like that, if he has to go to Concord, does he take the cruiser or?
I can ask him.
I mean, I'm sure he's a very outstanding guy. I
Sure.
just wanted to clarify.
Sure.
The other thing is, I see that on the agenda you have an appointment with Richard Sager about property auctions. And I don't know what that's about, but I just wanted to read a comment that he made on October 18th, 2016, after the property auction had been canceled. He wrote on the Tufton Borough Free Speech Forum, "In retrospect," this is quoting him, "in retrospect, I should have double checked to make certain the town was authorized to sell tax acquired properties. My bad. And then he went on, it was a longer comment, but I'll just read. Quote, the only one who suffers any financial consequence of this lack of town authority is me. I will absorb the cost of signs and advertising, end quote. So, just wanted to read that into the record.
Okay.
So it's,
We're all set with public input. Why don't we go to the next item? Appointment, Rick Sager, come on down.
okay,
Welcome.
thank you. So, I'm here to talk to you about property auction. There's been some water under the bridge, obviously, and first thing we have to deal with is the town meeting vote on Article 9, I think it was, where it was, the language was changed somewhat by a couple of amendments from what I understand. The final language, as I have it from the minutes, is to see if the town will vote pursuant to RSA 80:80 to authorize the selectmen to convey real property acquired by the town by tax collector's deed, by advertised sealed bid, or in such manner as determined by the selectmen as justice may require, which is, close to the statute. I wasn't at this part of the meeting. I did speak with New Hampshire Municipal Association, as I indicated, I think, to Karen, and it's their opinion, and they will provide this opinion to you in writing if you want, that you can still do a public auction, because RSA 80:80 I should say, authorizes the selectmen to sell property, and then you have the choice whether to do it by public auction or by sealed bid. Now, however you guys want to do it is fine with me. I would suggest you reach out to NHMA and have them weigh in on it, so I'm not accused of, conflict of interest, which I've been accused of. But there's a couple things that I think you should consider if you're going to consider doing an auction. From my experience doing auctions for towns for probably 20 years now, more so lately, since I got my auctioneer license, sealed bids, you just don't generate the amount of money that you do at an auction. I understand from some of the comments that were made at the town meeting, I'm getting stuff third hand, one of the concerns was that people who might want to bid on properties, and if they're not available the day of the auction, won't be able to bid. Well, every auction I run, I invite people, if they want to give me a limit by which they're going to bid up to. I take that, I have one of my staff bid that person. So I don't think that's a valid concern. Another thing you have to be concerned about is former owners, if the properties are held for less than 3 years, still have an interest in it. So in other words, if the town generates from a sale, whether it be sealed bid or auction, more than the past due taxes, interest, penalty, the former owner gets the excess. Or if the property happened to be mortgaged, the former owner and the mortgage company fight over it. So it's not necessarily all the money comes to the town, but the former owners also benefit. So what do? I know I've been over this with the two of you before. You weren't selectmen at the time, Chip. Essentially what I do is I take all the properties that you folks want to get back on the tax rolls. I recommend strongly they be done by absolute auction, which means we take no minimum bid, and that really hasn't been a problem. Why do you do that? Because it generates a lot more interest, and if you set a minimum bid and it doesn't sell, you still have the property, and then what do you do? So that's the way I like to go. The town basically doesn't do anything. I take care of, because I happen to be an attorney and an auctioneer, I take care of all the legal, which means the closings, all the paperwork preparation for the deed and what we have to file with the state of New Hampshire. Advertising, it's all about advertising, so I put a lot of budget into advertising, which includes the signage, which I put up 2 signs on each property, one specific to that day and the other with some generic information regarding the company, my company that does this. I get it on the town website. I have my own website. I send letters to all of the abutters of the properties because they tend to be ones that buy a lot of the pieces of land. I sometimes put it on another website called auctionzip.com. I haven't done that recently. Let's see. And of course, we field calls, quite a number of calls from people interested in. So essentially what happens is this. I run an auction. The town folks really, the staff don't really have to do anything except provide us some documents that sometimes I can't spend time looking for, such as certified mail receipts when the tax notice goes to the former owner for the final time, because as people do their due diligence prior to the auction, if they hire attorneys, they're going to want to see those certified record receipts, or not certified record, certified mail receipts. And we put that all on the website. So for each property, we put photographs of the property, if we can get in there. Most of the time we can. The tax collector's deed into the town, the former owner's deed, and whatever other information such as the certified mail receipts that I talked about. I hold an auction at a central location, perhaps it would be the townhouse, and I qualify bidders. I require a deposit to become a qualified bidder, usually $1,000, and then auction the property. Usually take backup bidders because not everybody comes through. And I've sold I think my last auction I did, I sold 2 of the properties to backup bidders. And I've never had an auction where not every property was sold. So everything gets back onto the tax rolls and the town makes some money. Former owners generate some revenue sometimes. And then I do the closings, and I have the selectmen sign a power of attorney just for tax deed acquired properties, which I record in the registry of deeds so I can sign the deeds. So it's basically a soup to nuts type thing. As how I get paid is I get a 10% buyer's premium. So if someone bids at an auction, $20,000, I get $2,000. There's no additional cost to the town, and that's it. We require, generally speaking, between 30 and 45 days for people to close. If they don't, then the town has an option of going after them for specific performance, but I've never done that.
So it's 3 years? I thought it was 7.
It's 3 years. If the town owns the property for 3 years, the former owner's right of redemption expires.
So that's changed.
Yes,
But
a
during
lot of
the-
it's changed.
During the 3-year period, the right of redemption still remains.
Yes, however, if the property is owned by the town for less than 3 years, you can send the former owner what we call a 90-day letter. So it has to be sent out 90 days before the sale occurs, and the former owner has 30 days in order to get back to the town saying that they're ready, willing, and able to buy back the property, at which point the town calculates what's owed give the former owner a reasonable time to come up with the money. If they don't, their right of redemption expires.
But if it's anything that's over 3 years,
It's
They
my,
don't have to send the letter.
it's my understanding all of these
so we're not
properties are
issuing,
over 3
we're
years.
not issuing quitclaim deeds, we're actually issuing.
We're issuing selectmen's deeds with no
Okay.
covenants.
And I know there was a lot of discussion about the difference between auctioning and sealed bids. In your, wait, look at this. You don't have an internet connection that you use during the auction period? In
During
other
the
words, if I want to,
Could you
if I want to be
take
in
online
Boston
bids
and bid
during
on
the
this
auction?
property, can I do it over the internet?
I haven't done that yet. I've been thinking about it, but I just haven't done it yet. Usually, you know, because there's not that many properties. It's not like an auction where you're selling off, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of items. But, you know, that's something I would like to do. I just haven't done it yet.
Because we have internet connectivity here. I don't know how hard it is to do the program for auctioning it. I don't think about it.
I've done that type of, when I've been bidding, I've done that type of thing. I haven't been on the receiving end to understand what the technology is and, you know, do I have to have one or two people monitoring that? But I get people that say, look, I'm interested in this piece of property. And I say, well, tell me what your maximum bid is. Give me a check for the bidder registration. I'll have one of my staff bid up to your limit. And if you don't get it, we send you back your check.
But you miss all the excitement.
Do you have any questions?
Well, I know there was some conversation at town meeting about, or a particular comment from somebody about, gee, sealed bid brings a higher price. That hasn't been my observation, not with real estate, but just with collector cars and boats and that sort of thing. The reason you go to auction is because auction tends to produce the highest selling price for an item. I mean, at an auction, what you want is two people that are interested in the item and they just keep going. I mean, how well that works for the tax deeded property auctions as opposed to things like collector cars, I don't know, but it's the heat of the moment that tends to help bring the price a little higher than if it's just all done by sealed bid.
I agree, and if a bank or a lender forecloses on a property, they have no choice but to do an auction. They can't do sealed bids, so there must be some reason for that. And the experience in Wakefield, I did a few auctions for them over the years, and then they decided, oh, we're going to try doing it in-house sealed bid, and they were disappointed, and then had me do the next one.
Well, there's no reason why the selectmen couldn't accept sealed bids, and we can also have an auction. And at that point in time, the selectmen can be the representative of the bidder. The underlying problem with sealed bids and governments and sealed bids and banks is the element of collusion, the dishonesty that's involved with sealed bidding and in the public's eye. And in fact, on any number of occasions. So we have that to deal with. We're walking on a strange line when we decide who we're gonna award the bid to. Then it becomes our decision. The other part of this is that, you know, we have to figure out in our cost structure, you know, who are we gonna hire to create the deed, who are we gonna hire to do the filings, who are we gonna hire to do the legal? And that takes away from the profit from a sealed bidding process, because now the expense is on our head as opposed to Attorney Sager.
Right, so I'm essentially fronting all costs and doing everything and absorbing all the legal.
Right, I mean, you have advertising, so what kind of budget do we want to put together for a sealed bidding an effective sealed bidding process versus,
I have a couple of questions. How many auctions have you done?
That's a good question.
More than 2 handfuls?
Yes. I'm gonna say between 15 and 20, rough figure. And I don't have to be an auctioneer to do that type of thing for the town, you know?
And could you list some of the municipalities you've worked for?
Wakefield, I've done a number, Tamworth, Ossipee, Claremont. I got one coming up June 3 in Unity. Hanover did one. That's what pops into my head right this second.
and did you have a chance to look at the assessed value versus the closing bid price?
Yeah, the rule of thumb, I always look at that afterwards to see where we are. It generally comes in somewhere around a third to maybe 40% of the assessed value, averaged out over all the properties. Last auction I did in Tamworth, a couple of properties shockingly sold for more than the assessed value, but that's generally not the case. Another problem with sealed bids is, what do you do if you have a tie? You know, it doesn't happen a lot, but you don't sell the property.
What is the budget estimated if the town of Tuftonboro had to develop a budget and to do all the things that you do? Is it $100 per property or $1,000 per property or what?
Inclusive of closings and...
Yes. If that's a nebulous.
If I do everything I do right now with...
Because if you don't do it, someone else has to do it, correct?
Right. If I build out for my staff, taking phone calls and putting together the documents, I generally do the website myself. Putting up the signage, buying the signs, how much per property. Real rough figure, if I was to bill it out, $1,000 a property perhaps, something like that,
We have 20 properties that we're considering, correct?
I don't
I
know,
have
we
the
haven't
information
reviewed-
if you like it.
Right. I have a comment. I used to live in Claremont. I have friends there, relatives there. I asked them, the ones that I know that are in government. I know people in Wakefield, down there all the time, and in Ossipee quite a bit. My question was, geez, how did the auction go, and tell me about it, and I was very careful not to be a district attorney where I was asking the question to make sure you knew what answer I wanted to get, okay? Every single individual, and there were 7 people I talked to last year, overwhelming, it's the way to go. And you are using some of the key buzzwords in your presentation that they used. You're understating them. Okay? Then I asked the most important question, knowing what you know now. Would you fire this guy again? Yes. 2 of the 7 people said, you want me to put that in writing? Let me continue. I know of 3 people in town who've come to me and said, I'm interested in bidding on a property that's next to me. I'm uncomfortable putting a sealed bid down. I want to be there and be able to, hey, for a few more dollars, is it worth it? What do you think, dear? Like that. If it's $1,000 per property for us to develop a budget, that's $20,000 that has to come from somebody's budget. There's nothing budgeted for that. The one other side of it, to be fair, is, and I'm going to throw myself on the sword, due to a family issue, when this issue came up last year, I asked as a selectman, gee, are all the T's crossed, all the I's dotted? And I was assured they were. And it's the one time I didn't go sit in the library for 3 hours and go back the last 20 years to make sure. I said right then and there, that will never happen again.
It won't happen to me either.
Okay,
It's about to.
the bottom line is, town meeting voted 54 to 51, and the dilemma I have is majority rules. So I'm laying my cards right on the table, and I'm struggling with that.
I understand.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work. I mean, it's not like I just go show up in an auction and make a lot of money. It's a lot of work behind the scenes, and you know, it is what it is. So if you guys decide to go with me, great.
Would you be willing to answer any questions if anybody has a question?
Sure.
of you? Do you have any more questions? Okay to open it up?
Yeah, I just,
Go ahead.
a quick statement that an auction that generates the market happens in an auction setting, whereas sealed bids, uninformed, one-time buyers or buyers of few properties have to determine what value is, whereas the market generates the value in an auction. So it's although you may think it's worth the X, or you can buy it for X sitting in your living room or at your office, the marketplace isn't telling you anything. You know, so it's when you get to an auction, the marketplace tells you what the value of the real property is. It might be less than what you were willing to pay in a sealed bid. Just to preclude any sort of extended conversation with the public, I think we need to probably at some point in time go over the properties that we want to list and then make some determinations about offering this. If we're going to auction the property, I don't think not that I have anything against Attorney Sager at all, but we need to at least explore the marketplace for auctioneers to see what other options the town has for vis-a-vis costs and all the rest. I think it's only fair to the voters of the town that we do that.
Sure.
And once again,
Fine.
I'm not saying anything
I
against
understand.
Attorney Sager. I think we just need to, it got a little muddy this year, and I think we need to clear the
Sure.
water a bit.
At this point, I'd like to ask you to take questions. I'd like to ask everyone to please remain civil. So any questions?
Yes,
See, the
please.
sign says be nice. So that's,
Who had their hand up first? Go ahead.
I'm just curious, did he ask to be put on the agenda, or was he invited by the selectmen?
No, he has to be put on the agenda.
Okay.
But he was coming anyway because we had a non-public prior to this about another issue that we needed to talk to him
No,
about.
that was all. I just wanted to know if you invited him or if you asked him to be put on the agenda. Thanks.
Please. When Attorney Sager read the amended article, he was absolutely correct. However, the second amendment to the article read, to see if the town will vote pursuant to RSA 80:A to authorize the selectmen to convey real property acquired by the town by tax collector's deed by advertised sealed bid. And that amendment article was declared passed.
Or in such manner as determined by the
That's
select.
not what the minutes of the meeting say.
I'm
I
reading the amendment right here.
I printed it right out.
I don't know, I have just.
This is right off your website. I'd like to have you read that, please.
I just got what I got.
Steve Snow and Steve Brinzer both brought that up.
I don't know them, but.
That's right off the website and had his minutes, which would really make this discussion interesting, and possibly next March you might revisit.
And this is the
subject.
official town website?
Right off the website, you're welcome to
Okay,
keep that.
because the same wording is here in what I have, which is the town
So
warrant.
which is right?
Which is the town warrant. And not unlike any other number of things that have come before the board over today even, selectively reading through is fine. And what you read is exactly what's here, except where it continues to say, or in such manner as determined by the selectmen. as
And I would
justice
ask that you
requires.
review the video, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
yeah, I'm just reading from the minutes of the town meeting that were prepared, and I read that language. That's what I'm looking at. I was not at that part of the meeting.
Anything else?
Two things. First, Lloyd, I really appreciate it how you have been doing this and opening up to comment from people who are here. I think it's really great. Thank you. Second, please do check the amended article, because Heather's draft minutes were incorrect. And she got a video from Joe, and Joe can, I think, confirm that he did her video. And she watched it and updated the minutes. And connected to that, I would say that the fact that the town meeting explicitly removed auction would mean that under what I believe is called no means no, you may not do an auction. Now, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert, so go ahead and look at that. I would just really urge you, if you're even remotely considering giving the finger to town meeting, that you really be sure that you have the legal right to do so, and, you know, don't base that decision on legal advice from an auctioneer who gave you bad legal advice before. Thank you.
Okay, we're all set here?
I think the only comment I would make to that is that if we look at the pieces of property that the town wants to sell, and we estimate the cost to the town for selling those properties, at that point in time, under a sealed bid situation, because now we have to bear the cost, at that point in time, we can then vote knowledgeably whether or
Yes.
not to have a sale at all.
Yes.
So.
No, it doesn't make sense to spend,
That's the reason
it
why.
doesn't make sense to spend $50,000 to make 10, yes.
And I would recommend you get, go to NHMA, get their opinion, get another opinion from another attorney if you want. You could be right about as far as the language is concerned. I don't know. I'm just reading what I was provided, so.
And that's what I was provided, so.
Your hand.
Where does the money go from the auction?
Into the general fund, correct?
Well, yeah, but we don't have, it essentially goes into your reserve because the budget's been set, so then it's next.
Yeah.
It becomes.
Well, it
It
goes
goes
into
into
the
the
general fund, and it's not money that has been authorized for expenditure this year, so yeah.
Is that your unanticipated fund balance
Not until next year.
for next
It's
year?
the same thing.
So eventually it works its way into the system, so the taxpayers get a break.
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Awesome.
And just to enlighten you a little bit, is there's a $50,000 line item in this year's budget for sale of property, so we may come up 50 grand short on our revenue estimates if we don't do something.
We're allowed 3 times a year to reassess that by the DRA.
Yeah, you can look at it again, but you can't change your
That's
budget
right.
without having a
Well,
special time.
They can look at it. All set?
Just one more quick thing. You had said that you will be reviewing and looking at the properties and making an assessment. And you are going to take into consideration, because the planning board, conservation, all get a list of these properties prior to, with what we considered for recommendations to be done or not done with them. Those will be taken into account as well.
Yep.
Sure.
Yes.
I'm assuming there's a file,
Yes, there is. Yep.
so those recommendations.
Right, by law, they're allowed to weigh in on it, to make
Well,
recommendations.
there's-
Well, it depends on how there's 2 statutes. One is the one that, this 80:80, it just gives the selectmen the right to sell them. Then there's the other one, which is where the selectmen can auction or sealed bid, sell or buy property. And that doesn't really mention, or it doesn't at all mention tax deeded properties, but you can't sell properties that the town got by gift or otherwise under 80:80, which was just passed at the meeting. You can sell whatever you have on this other one,
Right.
which is 41:14A. And that requires that you get an opinion from the Planning Board and Conservation Commission before selling them. You can certainly do it with tax-acquired properties as well. You know, not a bad idea, and, you know, it's non-binding recommendations, but at least you get a little bit more info.
Involves everybody.
Yep.
Well, again, thank you to everybody.
Thank you.
Have a safe
All set.
trip home. Have a nice summer.
Going over to Sunset to do some more cleanup, so. Got a good change of clothes in my car, thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Travel safe.
I will.
Next, we'll go to review and approval of minutes. First will be the Selectmen's meeting, April 24th at 3:10 PM. The week after.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I had one question about Bird's name. Was that changed? Or is that the next one?
I did note she's right, it's fine, yeah, that's, I'll have to correct that.
Okay. Any other changes? Do you have a motion?
Just moved, I'll second.
All those in favor to
Aye.
amend, say aye. Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Next, we have, let's go to Selectmen's non-public meeting, April 24th, and it starts at approximately 3:10.
I'll make a motion that we approve these minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes 3-0. Next is April 24th, non-public.
And just to make a note on these, that set of minutes is not sealed.
Correct.
Okay.
Nope, you didn't vote to seal it. 3:25 PM.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those are also not sealed.
Next is Selectmen's meeting, 10 AM Friday, April 28th.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Do we need to revisit this concerning non-public minutes?
What do you mean?
Down here, some of these, we have correspondence on to discuss them these here. You know what I'm talking
This is
about?
correspondence.
I thought we were on April 28th.
Yeah.
Is it a different April 28th?
This is the public minutes right here.
There we go.
And at 10:20, we came out of non-public, and during public session, Selectman Marcus moved to unseal the following non-public minutes
Okay, so
with
there's
redactions.
there are two minutes for April 28th. And I was on the other one. So
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. So,
So I'm gonna hold off,
well, no, I'll just remove my motion, because I made a motion on this set of non-public minutes,
okay.
beginning with the words, Selectman Markson moved to enter non-public for attorney's bills information if necessary.
Okay.
So we want to now talk about the other April 28th?
The public.
Right.
Okay.
The public minutes, we need to revisit and double check that the minutes that we checked and sealed are accurate, correct? And we have correspondence from Karen to go over that one by one, correct? Am I correct?
What I'd like to say is, the minutes reflect what was done,
Okay?
but the information was incorrect, so I asked that you make a new motion to replace your previous one. Does that make sense?
Okay,
But that'll be part of today's meeting.
Correct.
yes.
Yes.
We will hold this off so that we unconfuse the issue, okay?
Okay, but these still have to be moved as written, I take it, right?
Okay.
Wake me up here.
These dates and things, there's a memo in the correspondence, these need to be corrected, they're
This,
not correct.
this information
Oh, okay.
here is what was stated.
Correct.
It just is not, there's one or two that are not correct.
Right,
So what we will do is,
just this paragraph.
these are the accurate minutes,
Yeah,
and we will make corrections today in today's minutes, correct?
Okay.
It will be reflected in today's meeting.
Okay.
okay,
Right.
and that's
So-
the unsealed minutes were
We're,
misstated in this.
That's correct.
Okay.
We were a
Yeah.
couple numbers off.
right,
Okay. So
so,
these minutes are approved because they were what was talked about.
I'll move that, I'll
Presented.
move that we approve these minutes.
Okay,
Right.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is non-public, April 28th. Begins with Selectman Marcus.
Yeah.
Was there a time needed that he moved into non-public session? Karen,
You know what, I thought, caught that after, it should be right at the beginning, thank you, at 10 a.m.
at 10
Because
a.m.?
you went right into non-public.
Yes. So that's an amendment.
Mhm.
Other than that, any other changes?
Move approval as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Now we go to the red folder. Signature file. The correspondence referenced the lease from Carol Cersei. I merely added the date.
Mhm.
I didn't before. This involves signatures. Karen has emailed Gina Lassard, and she stated it's a job description more than a contract.
That's Gina Lassard's opinion.
Well,
Okay.
so,
Could be added to the beach manual, as I think all beach staff should have signed, that they have read it. The contract is what we discussed with Carolyn, and the selectmen approved it in February. Please advise if you'd like to accept the contract, or if the information should be incorporated into the beach manual instead. That's the note from Karen. What action do you folks want to take on this?
it's not an employment contract, so that the wording associated with it should be adjusted to reflect that.
It says employment contract for aquatics director, Tuftonboro Swim Program.
Right. And what I'm saying is, it is not an employment contract, it should not say it's an employment contract.
Right. So if you want to call it a job description, it's a job description. If you want to call it an employment contract, it's an employment contract. Those are two very dissimilar things.
And what does the board wish to call it?
A job description, I think.
It's,
What I'd like to.
yeah, description of job responsibilities, job description,
Okay?
expectations.
Is that a motion?
Would you like it put in the manual or separate?
First of all, is that a motion to change the title?
My recommendation is that it goes back to Gina and have her adjust it and send it back to us.
Okay. Is it clear what he's saying?
I just need to know if you want to put into the manual for all people. She figured it would be good to put in the manual for all staff to be able to review and sign off on.
I have no problem.
No,
It's a job description, right?
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we're all set?
Yep.
No further action. This is reference pit permit on Middle Road, 109A 6-2-69. We had a couple of questions. Karen says, I spoke with Jack Parsons regarding this. This pit has been active in the past 2 years. We just issued a gravel tax levy at our last meeting. Therefore, would fall into the same situation as other pits. It needs to come into compliance within 2 years. If you agree to approve the intent, I will send a letter about coming into compliance with 2 years as we have for other signed intents. Make sense?
Yeah, as long as there are no cracks in the bridge.
All those in favor of signing this intent to excavate, say, is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Second,
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
who does Jack use for secretarial staff? Is that Karen? I mean, he needs to create a tickler file for this stuff that we're bringing up. We had a non-public earlier, which is creating a
Yep.
pretty significant number of cases that he needs to be looking at and have timetables on. And
I believe, I know when I've asked him questions, he's gone right to his file and has pulled the paperwork out. It's always been accurate.
it's just historically, the way things drop through the cracks is that there's nobody tickling, as they say. in
Yes, right.
business. So,
Okay, that's a good question. Karen, can you pass that on, request on to him?
yeah.
Is it clear what we're asking?
Yeah, that he has a reminder, a schedule of reminders, so if he's got, for instance, this pit permit, now,
That-
he needs to notify them that they need to get into compliance. Into compliance means filing with the planning board. So if there's been no filing with the planning board in 6 months, then we have to remind the customer that they need to
Sure.
come into compliance.
I understand that's his role with the
Okay.
planning board, I think.
Yes, this is for Cow Island, a survey. It's from Ames Associates. Have you read the contract?
I'll look it over, yeah.
Okay. I have a question. Boat transportation is not included. Up to 4 trips to the island is anticipated. Transportation will either be provided by the client or will be hired by Ames Associate, and the cost will be passed on to the client. Is that acceptable to you?
Yeah, do we have a
Yeah.
vote?
We have individuals who who in the past have been available to take folks out, and we can either take them
Yeah,
out.
they just
we
don't
can-
have
we
to
can-
buy a boat to do the job.
Right.
So,
Now-
The cost that they're charging us is for the surveying, not for the transportation out the island.
Deposit required $2,400. The estimated fee for the scope of services is $4,800.
And that, we budgeted that for this year.
Yes.
Right.
What's the board's pleasure?
Move approval?
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. It needs one signature. Yes. This is from Leanne. Member appointments to the planning board. Steve Brinzer has been done. In addition, Ed Meyer, M-E-I-E-R, has requested appointment as an alternate to the planning board. Is there a motion?
So move.
And the name on it was Steve Brinzer.
That was, we did that last week.
We did that last week.
This is the alternate.
Oh, an alternate, okay, I'll second.
And this is for,
Ed Meyer.
okay, motion made and seconded. This term expires June 2020. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business is to appoint Jill Cromwell and Lorraine Hadley to the CIP committee Term expires June 2020. They're currently members. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item to be signed is yield tax levy for lot 45-1-17 in the amount of $1,022.50. All those in favor to sign, say, or motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Yeah, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next is continued business. First item is bid process for Rescue 1. Any comments? Only thing I have from Adam is, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it talks about the rescue truck that's going, just the background information on it.
Yeah. I did a little research on that, and I'm sure the Ospey Corner truck did sell for $12,000 by sealed bid. The retail rate I could figure out from the internet and making a few phone calls in an F550 with 38,000 miles on it on the utility box, although I didn't look at the layout of the box itself, but it was close to $18,000 that I saw as a realistic number. I mean, here we have a prime example of what we were talking about with the property sales. You know, everybody loves to get a great deal on a sealed bid, but is that doing the town's business, you know, most effectively?
So is it more appropriate to put it up from, like an online auction, you know, eBay or something like that? Maybe there's, there may be online auctions that deal with X fire apparatus, for instance, or that sort of thing, but the key is you want the broadest exposure you can.
Right.
Uh,
I mean, there are a number of dealers, not locally, but in Pennsylvania and areas of Ohio, I think there's one that deal in that sort of equipment.
Yeah, he says here, most of the companies that deal with buying used fire apparatus are out of the south.
Yeah. Well, there's some in the south as well.
It's good weather.
So, I mean, do we advertise it for sale at a reasonable price?
Why not
Do we
just,
do the sealed bid?
why not just say advertise it in the paper, like we do the police cruisers, sealed bid? Like every 2 years we do with the police cruisers.
I guess I would go along with that. The caveat would be that if we get bids for $4,000 or $5,000 for that truck, then we can refuse the bids and we can start the process over again. Adam's gonna have to spend a little more time marketing that, because I don't think,
Well, based upon the notes from Adam. He's got some, he's looking at talking to some, he sent some information out to some of these folks in the south, so.
Yeah. So you might
We
have
may
a
not
line.
be at the point now where, you know, it may make sense to let it percolate a little bit more and see if there's any level of interest that comes in
Right.
down there. You know, one of the things that can affect the value of these things is it is a former piece of fire apparatus. It is not currently a piece of fire apparatus, and specific pieces of equipment on it that make it usable for fire as a piece of fire apparatus are gone. They have been removed from it, including things like emergency lights and that sort of thing, so that so you're not. It isn't today a piece of fire apparatus.
This isn't a turnkey truck.
Right. But
Well, let's let the chief.
I'd say
work on
let's let this thing sit a little longer. Let him finish doing a little more
Exactly. Okay.
research on it.
Next item, cemetery abandonment.
The cemetery trustees at their last meeting, according to the minutes, have agreed with the Thompsons that the Thompson cemetery that we abandoned should be unabandoned. If I understand what I read in the minutes correctly. And what that means is we have to rerun the process, which is we have to run an ad in the newspaper specific to this one cemetery for unabandonment, and then hold a public hearing not less than 60 days after it's been advertised.
The confusion, I think, comes from the fact that it isn't the town abandoning the cemetery. It's the town declaring the cemetery abandoned by the people in it, or the people.
It's actually a bad choice of words, but you are correct.
So we're not unabandoning the cemetery.
We're reversing the action the board took.
Right, the Thompsons are saying
That
They're willing to take care of it.
That's, yeah.
they're not abandoning.
Right.
So it's their action of abandonment, not the town's, so just so it's clear.
So this is a technical situation, it's nothing personal, right?
Right.
Right, in order for the town to take care of the cemeteries, it has to become town property.
Yes.
And in order to do that, the cemetery has to be declared abandoned.
And the bottom line is, even if we do nothing, the Thompsons are gonna take care of it, so,
Well, for the time being.
yes.
You know, this current generation
Sure.
is going to do that.
All right.
We're all set on that.
So, we need to get an ad in the newspaper, and
Public hearing, can we have that during one of our meetings?
the public hearing we can do during one of our meetings. It has to be not less than 60 days nor more than 90 days after the public notice.
And can you work with the chairman on that?
So,
Can you work with the chairman on that?
I can.
Sure. Great.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Next is employee recognition event date, spring or fall. I think the feeling was fall, correct?
Yep.
They can't go on that?
Yep.
I haven't bumped into anyone who's against that, so. We went last year, it was
So,
a great time.
let me explore dates a little more with them.
Okay.
All right.
Any other continued business? Okay, selectmen's updates.
I'll jump in briefly. I attended the state's annual planning and zoning conference on Saturday, and one of the topics that I was involved in had to do with planning for the state's aging population. And the numbers that they were looking at were for the state overall, but in the town of Tuftonboro, it's probably that in spades. In the next 10 years, the age 65 and over population of the state of New Hampshire will increase by 90,000 people, give or take. And that's the vast majority of those are people that are already here. It's not in migration. There's a little bit in migration of older folks, but for the most part, it's people that today are under 65 and between now and 2026 will become over 65. So there was some talk about, from a zoning perspective, what do those things look like? And I will tell you that on our planning board, there's been some conversation about how do we, as a town, adapt our zoning to an aging population, the needs that older people that are less mobile have a different set of needs than younger folks do. One of the things that from a strictly zoning standpoint that is recommended is looking at multiple use zoning rather than a lot of towns. It's been residential district, business district, and when you go back to the old center of town approach of years ago, it was all mixed use. There's retail, there's manufacturing, there's residential, and everything within a fairly easy transit distance. But transportation, I don't think the town of Tuftonboro has ever been one where a lot of people walk to places they go. We're a rural town, things are spread out. But one of the things, and we have talked about this on this board before with respect to use of the roads, is looking at better handling mixed use of our roads. I think we have another opportunity with paving this year on 109 to look at moving the fog lines in a little bit. What the experts say is when you narrow the lanes down a little bit, it calms the traffic, it provides more room for bicycles, and it provides a safer environment.
Also protects the edges.
And it does.
Incrementally.
So, anyway, I'll stop at this point on that, but some good information out there.
So we're in the master plan process,
We are in the master plan process.
so we need to maybe look at those issues that you brought up in regards to our master plan.
Right.
I mean, I remember at one point in time, conversation about the lot size, to try to enhance the village or villages of town and reducing lot sizes in the village areas so things are more walkable.
Mhm.
The state passed a law, I guess this year, allowing 2 residences on lots
And
depending on.
fortunately, in the town of Tuftonboro, that's always been allowed.
Yeah, we've done
So,
that anyway.
yeah, we already had, we didn't have to change our
Right.
zoning regs or our land use regulations at all to comply with that state law. But
And I don't know, I haven't looked at the cluster zoning regulations that are currently in place, whether or not those should be revisited.
Anything else on the updates?
that's all I have.
Any updates from you, Chip?
No, although we need to solidify for the public's purposes that the road agent's coming in next week, I think, for his review or some conversations. And we probably should put Brown Road on that agenda because we did meet on Friday out at Brown Road. And I think establish to the satisfaction of a couple of selectmen where the lines are and what we're gonna do. So I think we need to continue that conversation with the road agent.
That will be on the agenda. For updates, on Wednesday the 3rd, Mark Howard and I will be attending the TAC meeting. It's in Ossipee. There actually will be a demonstration on unpaved road maintenance. They made a dirt road available that we'll be studying, working on. Under update, when the road agent is in next week, we did not go over the paving warrant article. Could that be something we talk about?
Was there a schedule in that warrant article? I don't remember. There was some discussion about what he was gonna pave this year.
Yes.
Generally, there's a schedule of
Yes.
roads that
Yes.
he's gonna do.
It's,
Yeah.
did I remember correctly, Durgan Road and Brown Road? Or am I
No,
correct?
it's top coat on Union Wharf
Wharf Road.
and
Durgan Road?
Durgan Road.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
part of
remember
Durgan Road.
Durgan came up.
But if, in the last couple of meetings, there's been, other issues that have come up, so.
Yeah, I
So
guess
that-
we need to have a discussion about what his plan is for the summer and how much of the winter ate into his summer budget.
Well, that leads to the next thing, gentlemen. If you look at his budget, winter maintenance, tree removal, he's spent $17,000 instead of 10. Spring maintenance, he's already over that by 7,000. Just like Clay came to us last year before the halfway point. Remember when the bills went sky high and getting rid of some of the recyclables? We need to have a conversation to make sure he's within budget. So, and we may have to work with him and readjust some lines.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Because there's still trees to come down. I mean,
Yes.
there's one on, I don't know who owns it now, but Jim Duke used to own it
Yeah.
up on Ledge Hill Road.
Yes.
It's a completely dead bowl
Right.
pine sitting on the road.
Right.
So,
So that's an issue. The other issue is, remember the checklist from a month ago for Lane Pond Road? One of the things is the road bed there, is the culverts there? Is it okay to release L.A. Drew's payment that we've held, for performance? So those are three things that the road agent needs to be ready to speak on. Okay?
so Karen can let him know.
Yes. Just so people can remember, this is for you, important dates coming up. Friday, May 5th at 10 o'clock at the Central Fire Station. Skip Hurt will be making a library presentation. Also, Friday the 5th from 5 to 6:30, Narcan training at the library. The next Board of Selectmen's meeting, there's been a time change. It's 9 o'clock on Monday, the 8th of May. On May 9th, Tuesday, Budget Committee meeting, organizational meeting.
What date is that?
Tuesday,
The 9th?
Tuesday, May 9th at 6:30 PM here. Department head meeting, Friday, May 12th at 10 o'clock in this room. Townwide yard sale, Saturday, June 3rd, from 9 to 1. Sign-ups are due in the offices, front office by May 26th. And the summer kickoff is Saturday, June 24th, from 11 to 1 at 19 Mile Beach. That's it for me. Next, we'll go to correspondence. Chief Shigori, March 31st statistics. Mirror Lake Drive, sale of property report. A New Hampshire Department of Revenue, community action report. Map 2-17-1. Dredge and fill permit. April 26th, a letter from Jeremy Eagleton, counsel for Carol and Ted Steinman, with photographs. Have you seen it? The selectmen met with Steinman's regarding Brown Road. This is a note to Jim for him to discuss it with us on the 8th. Dear Selectmen, this is reference 19 Mile Bay sticker permits and dump stickers. Please be advised how many 19 Mile Bay parking permits are allowed per resident. It's been an internal practice not to issue any more than 4, but I have recently had requests for more than 4 for additional family members. Also, please advise as to whether or not there's a limit for dump stickers. I've recently had a request for 4. We assume that some will be used for renters, but I haven't confirmed this. Sincerely, Karen. First thing on the dump stickers, refer that to Clay. He has a handle on it, right?
Well, I think we, at some point in time, have to have a policy on dump stickers. So that's our job, not his.
I have no problem asking him what he thinks.
Yeah, but he's coming in for a,
Yeah.
Maybe next week.
A meeting next week, let's talk
Yep.
about dump stickers.
Then, fine. The thing is that the permits for the parking area in the parking lot.
That's the one up behind the,
19 Mile, yeah,
19
yeah.
Mile Bay. I have a question. Why is the front office giving them out when we're not here? Why don't the police department? It's a parking problem. They're always around.
do we charge for these permits, or is this,
Yes.
do we? So we don't want
$3.50 a
police-
permit and then $1 for
Yeah,
a
we
New
don't-
Year sticker to put on the permit.
We don't want the police department collecting fees.
Put it in an envelope and seal it, like a parking ticket. I don't know, just ask the questions.
How many cars does that fit? Do we have that figured out?
I don't know, but I can tell you that in the middle of the summer,
It's full.
it's full and you see them parked all up and down both shoulders on 109. So while I'm sensitive to, gee, we got lots of family members, you know, do we really want a situation where one particular family forces other people who also have a legitimate access to the lot to not have a place to park? I mean,
Or
This is-
we,
I thought the parking lot at the 19 Mile Bay store.
it's not the store lot.
No.
No,
No, those are condo lots.
that's right.
So
They're
those
privately
people
owned.
all have boat rights there and dock.
Yes.
So I thought,
It's,
this is additional parking. I
This is-
always thought for like people launching a boat.
no, this is the lot at the other side of the bridge. That
Yeah, I
belongs to the
know.
town, yeah.
I know what you're speaking of, but I didn't know that it had anything to do with residents or summer residents. I thought that was just transient parking for people that launched at 19 Mile Bay and then went out for the day. on
No,
boat.
we have a parking regulation on that lot.
how many permits did you give out last year?
I've always only given out 4. This is the first time I've had this issue. Is that what you need at a time, or?
Right.
Total.
How many
Total.
people came in and bought permits last year?
Oh, I don't know.
100?
Yeah, sure, probably. I mean, well, that's high. That might be a high number. I'm not quite sure. Because I'm not the one who gives them out either.
I mean, the lot's only gonna hold so many people. I mean, it's like a lottery. I mean,
First come, first served, like any municipal parking lot.
But you've had somebody come in and want more than 4 permits.
Correct. More than one person.
More than one person wants more than 4 permits? Wow.
Just 2 today. It's my first time that I encountered that.
Is there any other municipal parking in town? Not that I know of.
Not that I know of, except if someone would go, is that school meeting or at the library, but that's not permitted. It's not where we issue a
Yeah.
permit. Well, why don't we give it some thought and talk about it Monday? Okay. May 1st, a request from Don McWhirter for right-to-know information. Karen, you're all set with this?
Yeah.
Have you seen it? Pretty straightforward. These are all forms that they have to file. You are the town's good luck charm. This is from the Department of Revenue Administration. We are back over $1 billion in assessed value.
Oh my
It had
God.
dipped down into the 900s, 800s in your absence, so thank you coming
We
back.
lost a comma.
Right, but what's interesting is, it doesn't include the utility valuations. That's 14 million right there. So, thank you, you're a good luck charm.
God bless me. I guess with regard to the boarders, right to know, do we get on an annual basis financials from the camps?
Yes, they have to, by law, file the appropriate forms.
Right.
Yes.
And have we reviewed them, or do in the past where they reviewed?
I've seen them occasionally when they've come through.
The reason I ask is that you've got the Maris case that just happened.
Mhm.
And so there's a certain question about exemption for some activities at the camps.
Yes.
That we really should probably, I think that particular 91A request is trying to keep us on top of that issue a little
Sure.
bit.
I know since I've been a board member, there's a couple things that have been done. First of all, I have conversation with each department head to make sure that these 501Cs are not being a burden of services. That's number one. I ask that question every year. The other thing is I'm aware that the 501Cs, they provide services to the town without being asked. For example, I know of a couple of 501Cs that if a member needs help with their fuel or their rent, it saves those people coming in and asking for it here. It's nothing formal where we recruit these 501Cs do it. They just step up to the plate when they know that, your
Well, there's a
family's in
mention
need.
of payment in lieu of taxes. The churches obviously are not gonna pay us any money because
Correct.
and those are the people that you were talking about who give money for welfare.
Yes.
Right.
I know that.
On the other hand, you've got the camps
Mhm.
who historically have paid little or no payment in lieu of taxes, but are more and more operating longer and longer seasons and the Maris case is pretty specific about it being charitable. And what sort of charitable operations are they? I mean, it was some years ago when I was a selectman and reviewed the pilot, the payment in lieu of tax receipts of the town, which were next to nothing, and mentioned that perhaps every kid in Tuftonboro should be able to go to camp. Can or may not be able to afford it. You know, some action by the camps has to come forward after that Maris case.
I do know
If
this.
they're unwilling to do
I
that.
do know that since you left, I'm thinking of in one or two instances I'm aware of that every year these nonprofits send a check. For example, if an employee lives on campus and has a kid in the school, then that property is, they pay taxes on it.
They're not paying property on the taxes.
They pay taxes on that.
They're not paying taxes on the property. I mean, the camp
They're
director.
they're writing a check to
They're
the
writing a
town.
check, but the camp director of Belknap's living in a house that's not,
Yes.
that's not a summer camp property,
Right.
that's a house.
Yes.
So I mean, it's issues like that
Right.
that just start to fester, and pretty soon they become an issue. So
We
I
can
think
look at it again.
We need to maybe
Sure.
invite them all in.
Sure.
I mean, it's great to have a barbecue at Belknap, Camp Belknap, but that doesn't, remove the issue in my mind
Sure.
that they need to be part of the community.
That's reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Dave Jeffers, working with Clay for household waste issues, and Diane is doing the paperwork where we can save costs. This is from Bob McWhirter today, reference library meeting. Karen, if it's not too late, could you ask the selectmen to consider rescheduling Skip's presentation to an evening meeting when more people may be able to attend? Thanks.
I thought Skip generated that.
Came in today at 2 o'clock.
Didn't Skip decide this was the, I mean, he had some input in the meeting time, from my recollection, I don't know.
I might have suggested the time, to be honest,
Right.
because of Friday morning, but. it was
We didn't
agreeable.
talk about a time, so,
No? It's,
and it's the library, we have
Right.
little or no
sure,
authority.
right. Okay. Next is a wetlands permit application, and it's 138 Cow Island. It's rather routine. However, Karen, could you please contact Steve Wingate, Heather, and Dave Farley, who is the agent for this owner? They couldn't get the right town and state. It's in error.
Okay.
You notify those people. The reason why that's important is you go to notify the abutters, it doesn't get sent someplace. I mean, they spelled the town wrong, and I checked with the zip code, it's in New Jersey, it's not in New Hampshire. Okay?
Oh, Tuftonboro, New Jersey. Yeah.
We're the only fucking room.
To go on through, we have different departments, committees' minutes. And there's alerts and Newslink and Executive Council, legislative bulletins, just things to advise us what's going on, routine things. Any other correspondence? Other business. I'd like to bring something up. There have been people who've spoken to me about complaints of multiple pieces of white furniture beside 5 Durgan Road. Could we request Karen to contact Jack and Andy as to what our options are to having this cleaned up? Folks, I'm not looking to arrest anyone for littering, but come on now. It's been there for 2 weeks, and the people who spoke to me are more than reasonable. They'd even help out lug them off. So can you check on that for me?
I have a trailer, I'll help too.
Next, How are we making out on the status of the computer inventory update? Karen?
That was given to you, I think, a meeting or two ago.
Okay, and there's some departments that he hasn't updated?
He just needed the information for Clay's computer.
Okay, can you ask him to get that for us? Okay, that's good. Any other business? Public input. Thank you for waiting.
Again,
Whose hand was up first?
They're deferring to me. Sweet. I'll be quick. Just curious, and just throwing this out there, but, you know, Chip, you've been now grounded with, you looked at for the used equipment. Why aren't any of these vehicles being traded in or disposed of in some other way that might be more lucrative to the town? You know, clearly by the comments that have been made that, you know, you get next to nothing for these things. You put them out to bid or whatever. I just was wondering if you could maybe look into some other means of getting rid of these vehicles when it's time to get rid of them, because this one particularly looks like it's actually a pretty good one. I mean, I know that some of them are probably not worth anything, but maybe something to look at doing
I think that's
differently.
what we're doing. I mean, if you think about where this is coming from, and Roy is probably more knowledgeable than I am, but the dealer that they're getting the fire apparatus from is not a truck dealer. They're getting the chassis from a truck dealer.
Right.
They're not in the business of taking stuff and trading generally. They're
Right.
in the business of equipping the fire truck. So it's not like a car where you can trade it into your local dealer. But I think we are exploring options.
It just seems like you guys, that's a burden that maybe you could either streamline or make it more cost effective. That's my thing. It just seems like maybe you can research a little more cost effective approach to the disposal of the used vehicles. That's it.
More of a commentary than anything. Considering the stone wall being placed in town right-of-ways, it's very interesting to note that the selectmen some years ago authorized the building of a stone wall by the road agent in the town's right-of-way at number 9 Road to placate a citizen. Very interesting how things have changed. Thank you.
I think there was a vote by the board in that instance.
Did I see your hand up? Okay, anybody else?
I have the video of the Article 9 warrant article number 9 being amended. And I'm going to email it to you so that you can all review it. Chip, is your town email chip.alby or
I think so. I don't-
Karen, can you confirm what his?
I've never set one up.
Oh,
Okay, so you can send it to I'll give you my email address.
well, I'll send it to Karen.
Send it to Karen, she can send it to me. I mean, I hope you appreciate the fact that we were handed this, and
Yes.
I don't have a photographic memory of everything that happened in town meeting, and I'm reading this.
Although you are in the video right there, so you were there, but
No, I'm
I'm just
saying-
teasing you there, but
I'm not saying I was
Yeah.
there, but I'm also saying I'm old. So-
No,
so no.
Hand me that.
what happened is that
Hand me
the draft minutes were different, and then, but if you watch the video, it's very clear. So I'll send that to you and you can look at it. And then just once more, actually, Lloyd, again, thank you for doing a public comment at the end, because I think it's important for people to ask about what happened during this meeting. So that's great.
We do have some action to take on those correction from last
There's a question.
week.
Go ahead.
I can wait.
Public.
Oh, okay.
You're up.
Okay, you didn't announce what Don McWhirter was asking for, but I surmise it's the financials on summer camp.
It's some information on the
What they do, who's
501c3s
taxed.
in town. Who's tax exempt, has the property been assessed? there's any number of questions that he has.
a lot of questions on
This is
this.
public
yeah.
information.
Sure,
right?
it's like public
Here it
information,
is,
yeah.
just hand it back to me.
And, nice stretch. Is this, now, I'm sure this goes on all over the state, because we are the Lakes region, and I'm just wondering, does Lakes Region Planning Commission have certain policies? Does the state have certain policies about that, or?
Policies
does
about
each-
what?
Does each town make its decisions on whether they're going to tax
No.
camps? Is that a town decision, or is that something that's a,
The camps have, historically, the camps
Yeah.
have filed, 501c3 status with the state and the federal government. And the towns have accepted that as prima facie evidence of nonprofit status.
so what if they choose what they give you?
That's a pilot, payment in lieu of taxes.
Yeah,
And that pendulum has swung dramatically over the last 30 or 40 years, back and forth. But the level of service that's given to the nonprofits has remained pretty constant, just as it is with all of the residents. So
mhm. But there isn't a study out there where they're comparing towns and how this is handled, or what these 501c3s are actually doing.
Oh, there's a plethora of information.
yeah.
I've been involved in them for a number of years. In another town, I helped negotiate payment in lieu of taxes. He is absolutely correct. You're a church or a camp or it's a humane society or whatever, there's some paperwork you need to file with the compliance division of the state of New Hampshire, the Attorney General. I was president of 501c for 12 years. And there's a form that needs to be filled out. And there's some vigilance. The next thing is, there is some information that those people, in order to keep their deferred status, need to share with the town. I think it's called an R16 or something like that, and it's there. The third thing is, there's an RSA that deals with pilot payment in lieu of taxes. And there are some towns that, for example, in Auburn, New Hampshire, where I lived and worked, the Manchester Water Works owns 7,000 acres. And there's a relationship between the two where they pay in lieu of taxes. The last year I was there was $888,888.88. And they negotiate that every 3 years. So I'm sure there's some towns that don't even look at it, but
But all of the, Wolfboro is subject to Brewster and Huggins and, the Kings Regional School District. We have camps.
yeah, I've looked into it, and there's a couple of other comments off the top of my head. First of all, 2 of the camps have put in 24/7 water sources that can be used not just for their property, but all their neighbors' property. It's called cisterns. A pond freezes over and you break a leg, trying to get into it. The other thing is that all of the camps have worked with our fire, police, and safety people to make things easier the few times that, all the camps are safer. The other thing is they employ dozens and dozens of people from Tuftonboro, a lot of them seasonally, but a lot of them permanent, with benefits. There's one camp, for example, last year, or a couple of years ago, bought a half an island, and instead of playing games and taking it out and buying it incrementally, said, we're buying it 1 year, here's a check for $145,000 because we're taking it out of current use, turned around and put it in current use. All of a sudden, they're not the biggest jerks of the world.
Well, I'm not saying anybody's the biggest jerk in the world, but that's just a commercial activity of buying property. The problem that they've run into is that they've expanded their business outside of what is the nonprofit or charitable.
Well, yes, one of the problems in Camp Marist is they have tent sites or camping sites, and they're open to the public all year round.
Right.
Well, that's a commercial operation, and they got brought up short for it.
Right, but there's any number of instances. I mean, you look at the center at Northwoods that's been rented out for weddings.
The Tadaro Center, yeah.
Tadaro.
Still is. I think there always were sites at Sentinel. How much corporate retreat activity is going on at Mira Vista? All those activities are not Boys and Girls Summer Camp. Those are activities in order to raise money, maybe to support the camp. But all I'm saying is that it's outside the
Sure.
window of opportunity that is a boy and girl summer camp. And, you know, there's been, the problem I have with it, and I'm happy to say it on television, is that the minute you bring it up in front of these camp directors, they go to the nuclear option, which is, oh, you just want to get rid of the summer camps. That's not what we're looking for here. We're looking for equity, and we're looking to protect the rights of the citizens of Tuftonboro. And sure, we have $1 billion worth of property. There's no reason for a camp or multiple camps to abuse the system of nonprofit charitable status in Tuftonboro. There's just no reason for it.
Now, each one of them files every year.
Right. And
You can go to Charity Navigator and see it.
right, and they're supposed to file, and I'm sure they do file financials here, but, I mean, you're talking about the YMCA of Boston. I'm sure their financial reports are as onerous as they were when I was here before, to try to find any sort of real information that's usable. But it's just an issue that's going to happen here in Tuftonboro, and I think we'd rather be proactive about it. And I'd rather be able to tell the citizens that have asked me about it that, yeah, our camps are being proactive. They're giving us payment in lieu of taxes. They're giving scholarships to local campers. They're doing this, that, and the other thing. You talk about cisterns, that's great, but that was primarily to curtail excessive insurance charges on their side. It wasn't just a public benefit project for Tuftonboro. So we do benefit a bit, but they benefit as well. So it's a multifaceted story. So that's all I'm trying to do, is be a little more proactive. The case is out there, people have read about it, we need to do something so that we're all in agreement with the camps that are here.
The last order of business is to go through Karen's request. Did you read it? I'll read it to you. There were a few errors made when the motion to unseal some public minutes. The approved date was stated rather than the date of the minutes. Some of the minutes were not sealed originally and therefore did not need to be unsealed. Additionally, others that were not originally sealed were unsealed with redactions. Please make the following motions in the order listed below. Okay so far? 1. Move to replace the previous motion made to unseal minutes at April 28, 17 and replace with the following. Move to unseal non-public minutes dated 6/20/16, 9/13/16, 9/26/16, both sets, one with redaction, and 10/14/16.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second for the purposes of discussion.
Okay. Anything you want to review?
I just want to, can we read the motion, or the motion that we had before? What substantive changes happened in this action that we've just moved and seconded?
As I understand it, we're correcting the minutes to accurately show what we did. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's the minutes of Friday, April 28th.
Yes.
Right.
And the minutes, I'm not gonna read them all, but they read as follows. During public session, Selectman marks and move to unseal the following non-public minutes: 2/22/16, 3/14/16, 3/28/16, 4/4/16, 5/9/16, 5/23/16, 6/27/16, 7/25/16 with redactions, 8/8/16 with redactions, 9/26/16, 10/3/16, two sets, 11/8/16, and 1/23/17. That action that we recorded there in those minutes is what this is addressing.
Correct.
Okay. We have not approved these minutes that I just read from.
We did.
Yes.
approved
Oh, we
them.
did?
Right.
Yes.
That was an accurate.
That's
reflection.
exactly,
Of what was
an
said.
accurate reflection of that
Of what was
meeting,
said.
okay? But after we did that, Karen brought it to our attention that,
Right.
that many of the minutes that we
Dates were wrong.
unsealed already were unsealed. So
okay.
these are the sets that need to be unsealed.
Yes,
6/20, 9/13, 9/26, two sets, and 10/14.
correct. And I've gone through and double-checked that she's accurate.
Okay.
Any further discussion on that motion?
And just to make it perfectly clear, these minutes this April 28th minutes are reflected in that statement of minutes there?
Yes.
Okay. I just don't want to confusion when
This is the example. At a meeting, I made the comment that the road agent was going to do Durgan Road and Brown Road paving. That's what I said, and those minutes were approved. At the next meeting, it was, by the way, those minutes are accurate, that's what Lloyd Wood said. However, the information was incorrect. It's Top Coat, Union Wharf Road, it's Durgan Road.
You know, I understand the action that we're doing. I just want to make sure it's clear when we leave this room, if the citizen wants to come forward and get this information, they understand the trail of events, that's all.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. My second is open for any more discussion.
Any other discussion? On the first motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion passes 3-0. Okay, so far? Sentence number 2. Move to seal the following non-public minutes dated 3/22/16, 7/8/16, and 7/29/16.
And refresh my memory, if you would. Those minutes contained what information?
I believe the reason, if you don't mind, if I explain, I think the reason why, if I remember the order why I did that, it's because you unsealed them with redactions, but they weren't sealed in the first place. So you see my third motion is, okay, now unseal them with, you see the third motion, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, and the chairman did some research vis-a-vis sealing minutes that are old.
Correct.
Maybe you could.
The next motion will be to unseal the following non-public minutes with redactions.
Right, but your authority for sealing the minutes from last year is what? It's just for the public as you explained it to me at one point in time,
Yes.
but
I just researched that there. If there's an instance where 2 months ago, the selectmen did not seal minutes, and nobody's asked for them, the governing body can seal them, no harm, no foul. If someone has asked for them 3 weeks ago, they're public information. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand perfectly what you're saying.
Right.
The
That's-
can of worms is, now are we in a situation where we have to research all the non-publics for the last 100 years to figure out if they're all sealed?
No.
Okay.
What's going to happen is the next motion, and Karen is correct, she's checked this out, will be to take these same dates and say, unseal the following non-public minutes with the redactions,
Okay.
and that will correct. That will, anyone who wants to review them with the
Okay,
redaction
so the
can.
discussion was in the non-public that we had,
Yes,
that some of these minutes need to be
sealed.
released to the public with redactions
Yes.
to protect personal
Right.
information.
Yep.
They're unsealed currently.
Right, we can't redact unsealed minutes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Have we confused anybody? Okay, there's a motion been made and seconded, correct?
Did we make a motion?
Did you make the motion?
I did not.
Okay. Is there a motion to seal those three sets of minutes?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second it.
Any further discussion? I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Now, is there a motion to unseal the following non-public meeting minutes with redactions? 3:22, 7:08, and 7:29.
So moved.
And I'll second that with discussion.
Yes,
Those are exactly the same minutes that we just sealed.
with the redactions.
That's not the question.
Yes.
Those are exactly the same.
Right.
Okay, that's, just so it's clear in the public's eyes,
Right.
what action we just took.
That's right.
Okay.
It's sort of
Never
like,
gonna happen.
it's sort of like the abandonment process of the cemetery. We have to go through these hoops when.
Right.
Any further discussion? I'll call for the motion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. I have no more paperwork to bring before you. Do you folks have anything?
Selectman Marcuson gave me the non-supervisory performance evaluation
Yes?
that we're gonna review and come up with a marketing scheme to our heads of departments.
Can we schedule that for a non-public at the end of
Yeah, we ought
next
to
Monday's
do that
meeting?
in non-public. Right?
Okay,
This is last year's
yeah,
evaluation. We have to work up an evaluation for that individual this
okay,
year.
all right,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
No, I was thinking, there was a discussion at some point in the previous meeting about,
another one, and we have to schedule a...
no, about, for instance, the fire chief reviewing his
Right, right.
Yes,
non-salaried employees,
yes, it's per diem.
his on-call people.
Yes,
Yeah,
And the structure of that,
right, he's coming up with a form, yes.
yeah. And that's
Yep.
different from this,
Yeah,
right?
okay, I'm sorry.
Anything
I'm
else?
sorry.
The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
So, in my reading about academic
Well, I hope
versus
you
get
do.
married, there was
Hope you
a
keep us
plethora
posted.
of information that goes through the book. And there's a
Oh, right.
criteria
Um,
that
Yeah, actually.
We also need to schedule time to
kind
set
of ethical
What?
thing.
Yeah,
police
no,
chief.
that's fine, awesome,
Yeah,
thank you.
criteria.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Two
Yeah,
rows
right.
back,
Thank you.
Yep.
I have a white
Get
paper.
married. Not being
Done to that.
Yeah.
ethics.
Excuse me.
2015.
Excuse me.
I know.
Over 45,000
Right here.
taxes.
I'm very aware of hearing things like that.
For the year 2015. I don't know how much farther I can.
Thank you.
I have a copy of that.
Of the town meeting.
of the, yeah, I CC'd you on that, of the video.
Oh, okay.
But I also
Now, your
have,
video, is that the entire?
No, it
Just get out there.
I have
The property.
the entire town
We get one from last
meeting
year.
video online, and then I
I have a
also
folder here.
clipped
Pull
the
that.
entire Article 9 from
There is one property
beginning
that's
to end. It's
before
like 35,
3
no,
years.
it's
That's
not,
before 3 years.
Less than
It's
3
long.
years, yeah. And
it's
that.
like 20 years, something like that, 20 or 30
Big
minutes.
flag, and last year we talked about it.
And I don't know what the timing is now,
Yes.
it's been 9,
Okay, thanks.
I don't know where we're at, maybe it's 2 years now.
But I also,
But it
There
wasn't.
you go.
yeah.
Yeah, you got your share.
Self-awareness is one step.
Yeah.
Molly step forward, you got Molly out there, you got Molly
It
fired up.
was these.
I did,
And
but I did
maybe we
CC you
drop
on
one
the
of
video.
them,
And
let me
but if you
see.
want Don McWhirter's, right,
Sure.
no, I can send
I'd
it.
just be
There
interested.
was got
There was
dropped.
one, there's,
Okay, so it doesn't sound
initially,
like
there
it's
was one
anything
piece of
bad.
property on
I
there.
have it.
It's all public document.
Yeah,
It's
and
not,
it's not
uh,
anything that anyone
a tax
can
deed property, it
particularly
was,
easily do anything with. I mean,
A piece down here on Union Wharf that the town.
you know, I mean, it's research.
I think it's more
This
just
one?
Town bought it,
Yeah.
we can't sell it as tax deed property.
This is the accurate list
But
then.
I would hate to
That
see
one.
Right.
all the lakefront
That's the
property
early one.
tied up and privatized.
Oh, was it?
So what you have now are generations of people who come and camp,
Right.
and they form ties to their
Well,
community.
Jackie's
And I
coming
know at
up
least in Wilkesboro,
too,
it's
but
probably
that's
the same in
before.
Tuftonboro.
Yeah.
So many people,
Current, I think.
Yeah.
So,
because of their childhood.
Yeah, well,
And then they come, and they really feel that this
looking at Sager's recommendation.
I've met people
10 grand, 200.
who live in, you know, like Arizona or whatever.
That's suing everything.
Oh, I went to camps,
See
you
you
know,
guys.
not necessarily in Tuftonboro, but
Two,
Multiboro,
stay out of
or
trouble.
even on the other side of the lake, you know. Like 3 or 4 different people
You're on
who
the
said,
edge.
oh, you know,
It's a big enough.
I used to go
And
there.
people used to leave the city,
With it.
and then you would ship your kids off to the country.
that,
You know, they didn't have air conditioning, and all
I
that.
don't know
Yeah.
what
Kids went to school.
We did receive an advertisement
So
from
they
another
would-
auctioneer.
Go.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? If it doesn't
yeah,
come out,
yeah,
There would be a mass
absolutely.
exodus in New York City. and
we can,
Yeah.
so the other stuff.
New York City is still bad in the summer even.
Well, I don't think they did a very
Bad
good
in
job
Boston.
selling
With the air
Boston's
conditioning.
horrible. No, it's just my daughter who
the whole
lives
thing at town meeting. So, maybe we won't sell anything this year.
It's my thought, no, never looked that way, you know, it's, but,
I mean, I just hate giving shit away.
yeah. Right.
Just,
Right.
Enjoy the 3-hour meeting and get information.